Welcome back to the LEC Summer Playoffs. I'm still Medic. I'm still joined by 11's older sister, 12. How are you doing today?
I hate you.
Understandable. It's Schalke versus Vitality. The first game was a dominant performance by Schalke because of a level 1 that really didn't go Vitality's way, with Upset picking up 3 kills on the Caitlyn early on. And I think the big question is, will we run it back? Will we have the same compositions, or will Vitality mix things up once again?
I would hope that Vitality change up their strategy. Don't go for the double jungle, but hey, what do I know? Maybe you take your chances, you roll the dice. I think that it makes sense in a best of 5 for that first game to go for the experimentation, because you kind of have that buffer. When you're looking down the barrel, possibly looking at match point, I don't think you double down.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You don't really want to go 2-0 down and have to look for the reverse sweep, especially in a series that could define whether or not you go to Worlds.
Now, I want to point out that this time around, Vitality are going to be on blue side. Now, Vitality are normally our red side team. They love picking red side, and this is because they love getting counter pick for their solo lanes. They always want to play with aggressive solo laners that can team up with Mowgli and be that very forward team. Now, how are they going to do this from blue side? I don't know, because they're going to have to sacrifice that counter pick that they usually love to get for Cabo.
I do see them also changing their bans up just a tad here. The Sejuani removed, that got through to the second rotation last time. Draven still taken away. Yuumi as well taken away here by Schalke. Didn't want to give the first pick prio across towards Vitality.
And I feel like some of this priority pick is going to be around a pick like a Sylas. It was the priority pick from Schalke on the other side, and it means so much for Vitality, but someone like Akali is also slipping through these bans. Yeah, with the Morgana ban, we actually have a lot more freedom coming into this pick ban. Rakan taken away. So what's gone through that wasn't there last time? Qiyana, Akali, Rumble are all options. Karma still on the cards as well. Sylas, yeah, wasn't banned last time, but he was picked away by Schalke. And so there's a wealth of options. I feel like for Vitality, Sylas means so much for this team, but they could also try to grab something like the Akali. The Xayah, that would be strange to me. They go ahead and lock it in.
Especially with the Khan being banned out, shows a lot of priority towards getting Attila, an AD carry here, is comfortable on. He's played it 4 times now, 1 in 3 on the champion in those 4 games, and we'll see what of the wealth of riches left in the picking pool Schalke will go for.
And maybe the mentality is that you just want to deny this from Upset, but I feel like with having both the Xayah available as well as the Kai'Sa, which that Alistar, which signify, that there was, you know, other options that Attila and Jactroll could grab that Upset might take away. So there's the Sylas that we were talking about. I'm curious if Vitality made the right choice by prioritizing that Xayah over something like the flexibility that Sylas has given them.
Yeah, so many different options for that Sylas, jungle or in the mid lane, both available for them. Abbedagge yet to lose on the champion as well, 3-0 in the 3 games he's played. We'll see what Schalke decide to use as their second pick here. The Alistar, as you said, usually signifies it's going to be teamed up with the Kai'Sa in that bottom lane.
This does put pressure that this third pick from Schalke will be a Kai'Sa. If they don't pick it up now, it would be a very easy second rotation ban for Vitality to continue to pinch that pool.
Very much agree with you. There are a few AD carries that sometimes can sneak in when you have an Alistar. Things like the Kalista work out very well with him in the bottom lane. So we'll see where Vitality, how Vitality decide to do this next pick phase, and if Schalke want to go for the Kai'Sa. Qiyana is available, as you say. Gragas has been locked in. Expect that to be going into Mowgli's hands. Has had some pretty effective games on the champion.
Are we going to get Jiizuké's Yasuo?
Why would you pick Yasuo here?
Well, because it works really well with Gragas.
That makes sense. The 2v2 mid jungle isn't usually what Vitality play around, though. Usually we see Mowgli looking more for counter jungling, looking more for invades, but there's the Akali that was banned out in game 1. Not in Abbedagge's hands here, but instead in Jiizuké's.
This is a flex between Cabo and Jiizuké still, though we do usually expect to see Akali in this mid lane. I kind of feel like they're a bit heavy on magic damage right now from Vitality. Normally why you see something like a Yasuo or a Qiyana is to team up this Gragas with the AD damage, so you're bringing both AP and AD to the table.
And we'll see if Schalke decide to ban out some of those AD threats in the second ban phase. There's the Kai'Sa that you predicted all the way from the Alistar hover on first rotation, and now Schalke have their second ban phase available to them.
What I find really interesting is the priority of Alistar over a champion like Nautilus. Both of them work really well with Kai'Sa. Alistar is a bit faster in terms of like setup and proc. a bit more AoE, but usually you see a Kai'Sa Nautilus as kind of like a stronger passive lane, and it's something to keep our eye on with IgNar when he prioritizes the Alistar versus the Nautilus, when they give very similar things and have very strong combinations with a champion like Kai'Sa.
A lot of it comes down to exactly what sort of impact you want to have in team fights. Alistar has more of a larger knockup. You can get more people caught out in it. So if IgNar can find some good flanks, he can catch all of Vitality out at once.
I think he provides, like you're saying, a bit more AoE CC. I think Alistar also works better than Nautilus in terms of like chaining CC. Yep. The duration of which you can hold someone locked down is pretty high, but so far he's basically the only CC on this team outside of what Sylas is going to provide.
Yeah, we'll see. Usually they look towards Trick as a CC jungler. Things like the Jarvan, like the Skarner, the Elise are some of picks in his wheelhouse. Once again, Schalke going to get rid of the Rise, respecting Jiizuké and Cabochard's ability to play the champ. And with the Rumble banned away, Vitality continues to pinch that top lane pool. Skarner is the next ban from Vitality, so they realize what we did, which is the fact that you have a lot of CC coming out from that jungle, but the Qiyana works its way through, and that could be jungle, it could be top, that could even be mid.
I kind of feel like it's going to be the jungle Qiyana, because again, it fits in Trick's wheelhouse. He recently did show this, so we know that he's up to date on practice with it. He likes to play those level 6 junglers. I think if the Skarner maybe hadn't been pinched, he wouldn't have reached for the Qiyana here.
It provides everything that you want it to provide. Now with the Karma lock-in, we expect that to be Akali mid, Karma towards the top side, and we'll see what Vitality want to round out for their support. Of course, the Karma could be support, the Gragas could be support. There's a few different options, and as I say that, Olaf is the lock. So the expectation has to be that Gragas is going down towards the bottom lane.
You called it, Medic, and that's a lot of kill pressure coming out of a Gragas and a Xayah. A lot of immediate CC lock between the belly bop into the feathers. Something about Olaf that we see in other regions, particularly the LPL versus the LEC, is Olaf is usually considered the bot lane ganking jungler. His ability to rock out of the jungle, hit an axe, and then just mow someone down in a long lane is exceptionally high. So I'm curious if, with the Karma blind pick from Cabochard, that Mowgli is going to be spending most of his time with Attila and Jactroll are trying to use that Olaf.
Can be incredibly effective. The final lock-off pick ban was the Mordekaiser for Odoamne up towards the top lane. I believe he's only played it once before this split. It was a win. He went 3-1-4, but he knew he was picking into the Karma. This was a deliberate counter pick from Schalke. I have to see how effective it can be for them when we get into the game. I want to come back to an idea we were bandying around after the first game and at the start of this pick and ban was, would Vitality innovate again? Would they look for something a little bit eclectic, a little bit strange? It doesn't look like it to me. This looks a lot more standard for Vitality.
Yeah, and it's also a much more kind of a 1-4 type of composition. Again, all of our eyes are on Jiizuké for Vitality. Does this guy pop off? Does he demand that the game get played around him? Whereas on the other side for Schalke, outside of the Mord pick, it's again, stock, standard, usual. A lot of comfort picks coming through. We recently saw Trick on the Qiyana. We know that Abba loves playing Sylas, and it upsets Kai'Sa of all ADCs.
Upset just incredibly powerful on that pick. Schalke have been so impactful when they play their usual style, when they get a bit of scaling, when they get towards team fights. Probably one of the best team fighting teams in our league. Vitality, much more about skirmishes, much more about finding picks, catching people out, and then enabling Jiizuké to play it towards a side lane. Early on, Vitality will be looking to get their bot lane and their mid lane ahead. We'll see if they can do it, because Schalke are standing in their way, as always, and it's such a difficult road to have to walk through. We're going to hand it over quickly now to an interview with Yamato backstage.
You had to take advantage early in game 1, but I guess that things didn't quite go as planned. So why did you tell the guys?
Oh, it's okay. Like with a strategy like this, either you look like monkeys or you look like mad geniuses, and that's a risk we knew coming into it, and that happens sometimes.
Is it the reason why you chose to go for a more standard draft in game 2?
I think Schalke showed a lot in the first game, and we used that information to make a decision, and more than that I can't say.
All right, well, let's see how it pays off for you guys. Thank you and good luck. Back to you guys.
Schalke showed a lot in the first game.
All 20 minutes of it.
Yep. Also, Yamato must have been looking at a bit of a different game, because if you give Caitlyn 4 kills early on, it's not really that hard to take the win.
I think the one thing that you can take away is how much Odo was left on an island, and how when Vitality were getting things back, it was playing through Cabochard's side of the map and trying to punish that. That said, on a pick like Karma, normally when Vitality used this pick, especially in tandem with an Olaf, you can very clearly see how these two champions synergize together. Karma not only can get a lot of push priority in most matchups, to allow Olaf to invade, but when she is teamed up with him like this, you can help zip around the jungle and be very aggressive in how you are able to run up to opponents.
And it's something Mowgli has been doing the entire split. Counter-jungling, getting into the enemy's faces, trying to steal away as many camps as possible. Doesn't usually play around his laners as much as someone like Trick, who is more about getting his lanes ahead, getting them fed, and then using that advantage to snowball a lead.
Mowgli might be in trouble here.
He could be, but I mean, Abbedagge could be in trouble as well, because the axe will land, Abbedagge able to dodge away, and Mowgli actually staying around, maybe a little bit greedy.
So the big thing is that Abba moved before Trick was getting there. Qiyana was on her pathway, and because he got chunked out, it now puts Trick on the back foot. If Abba and Trick had moved together before the Raptor camp, maybe this is more successful for Schalke, but because Abba moved too fast and Jiizuké did a good job following him, that's what allows Mowgli to grab red and do Raptor to Raptor possibly. He's gonna make sure that he doesn't get 3 buffed. Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, wants to make sure that he gets his own blue buff. He knows that Trick is on the top side of the map, so actually going to be a 3 buff here for Mowgli over Trick.
And this is now double games where, yeah, game 1 strategy didn't work out for Vitality, just didn't necessarily have the execution to pull off what looked good in theory, where they're actually kind of attacking the jungle specifically. Yeah, you can say that maybe the double smite was also in reference to the Caitlyn Morgana forcing that split map, but the fact that this was a red buff start from Mowgli on Trick's red, it kind of feels like the strategy for Vitality is to throw Trick off and everything that he offers Schalke in this best of 5.
It makes a lot of sense. Trick is one of those players that really enables his team to take leads into the mid game and start looking for those team fights that Schalke are so able to do. Abbedagge and Jiizuké trading a little bit in the mid lane. Neither has Ignite. They're both running teleport, so no one's going to go down. But want to bring attention to 2 key statistics here. Trick's JP, that's his jungle proximity, how much time he spends around his laners, is the highest in the league. He's always there trying to set them up. Mowgli is all about counter jungling, or CJ percentage. It's how much time he spends in the enemy jungle, but he spends a very small amount of time around his laners.
And specifically a very small amount of time around Jiizuké. I'll hold it for bot lane.
Yeah, Trick's coming in. IgNar's going to land the stun onto Jactroll. IgNar's ticking away, though. First blood goes over to Vitality, but Trick is on the chase. The root comes out. They don't want to go any further as there's a minion wave there.
And Medic, you and I talked about this in draft, how much kill pressure there is when you do have a Gragas. Attila and Jactroll try to go on the offensive, but Upset and IgNar are able to push them off and then force the first blood.
And the kill going over to Trick there is much more beneficial for Schalke than Jactroll picking up the kill for Vitality. Doesn't mean Jactroll's gone back and got a Frost Fang, so he has a little bit more damage in that lane and will stack up his quest just that little bit quicker. IgNar is the one to go for the engage here, though. Okay,
yeah, so Attila and Jactroll had control of the lane. Jactroll steps up too far, and IgNar immediately pulls the trigger. Correction, it was IgNar that went down first, so a 1-for-1 trade, but you can see what the idea was, just mixed execution, and Schalke, seeing where they had opportunity, decided to get one back with Trick.
So there's actually a tiny micro thing there that IgNar was looking to do as he goes in towards Jactroll, who lands a great body slam. Trick's going to get spotted out here. But what IgNar was trying to do was, as he saw Jactroll put in the cask, he was expecting him to blow it up straight away. Jactroll would have taken tower aggro and been stuck underneath the tower. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Abbedagge and Jiizuké is going to trade here. Mowgli coming in, but it's going to get forced away. If Jactroll had taken aggro, it would have been a 1-0 trade in favor of Schalke in that first kill.
I want to point out this gank. This is what you see globally, usually with the Olaf. Again, the ability to play through bot lane as Olaf. It's one of his great gank paths there. But because Jactroll doesn't have access to flash, there's not a ton of kill pressure here unless IgNar's caught out.
IgNar's just trying to protect his ward. He knew that Mowgli was going in with the Oracle's lens. The ward will be spotted out, I believe, by that Scryer's Bloom, and with Jactroll here, both the AD carries will teleport back down towards that bottom lane. It's a sizable lead already building up here for Vitality, Froskurinn. It's a lot of it's going to be CS differences in the top lane, in the bot lane, but it's about 1,000 gold already. Only 6 minutes in. It's a pretty sizable sum. Mowgli's trading here onto Trick. Double root's going to land. Abbedagge going in, and Mowgli will fall, and now Jiizuké has to look to get that flash away, trying to escape. Trick still on the chase, flashes forward. Oh, he misses! The edge of Ishtal just skimming by Jiizuké, and that means that the Akali will live to fight once again.
Right place, right time for Trick, and just frankly disrespect from Vitality. Mowgli thinking that he could walk through that, did not figure out how much damage Trick and Abba were going to be able to do with him. Looked a bit surprised that he gets mowed down in that mid lane. He thought he was just going to cross through, have a handshake, maybe wave.
Yeah, Trick and Abbedagge had other ideas right here. You can see double root landing from Trick as he steals away with the Terraform, and it makes it very hard for really Jiizuké and Mowgli to do anything in that fight.
I mean, you're playing against multiple pieces of CC on the likes of Qiyana and Sylas versus what an Olaf and an Akali are going to bring to you, especially pre-level 6.
You are, and Now that we get through like sort of this early flurry of action, I think the expectation is that these lanes will continue to play themselves out the way they have been. If you look at the bottom lane, Attila's built up quite a sizable lead, and because he's got a BF sword over what is a much more passive lane in the Kai'Sa Alistar, you expect Attila and Jactroll to be able to force this Kai'Sa Alistar away and just chip away at those turrets. Meanwhile, in the top side, Cabochard continues to push Odoamne back whenever he gets the opportunity, and this really allows Mowgli to look for some of that counter jungling we were talking about.
Focusing on that wave that you were talking about bottom, the issue is that this big crash, this huge wave that Attila and Jactroll had kind of built up, they didn't really deny anything from Upset or IgNar. Usually you have to time this type of crash with a dive, but because Jiizuké doesn't have TP and Mowgli was on the opposite side of the map, there weren't the numbers capable for Vitality to actually snowball on it. So Mowgli finally gets here, he slipped in underneath it, but now he's just acting again as a security blanket for Attila and Jactroll to get the bounce off this tower and then back away.
Maybe even look for the invade. Believe they'll be spotted out because of that blast cone going down. There's a blue buff up. Would be another one stolen away here by Vitality, but Schalke looking for the fight.
This is a item advantage here for Attila.
He's also got the level 6. IgNar went for the Hex Flash, didn't land it. But Schalke not willing to give this one up.
Look at Abba, he's got priorities down there first, now zoned out.
Yeah, I don't think Vitality's going to be able to get back to this blue buff in time. Abbedagge is going to be gifted it across. And you can see when we talk about the jungle styles, that's exactly what we mean. Mowgli going for the counter jungling, trying to steal away some of these camps, whereas Trick is really just about enabling his laners.
And it's also, again, kind of this desync with Vitality. It feels like when Vitality are shooting on all cylinders and they are synced up, moving as a single team, that it works much better. But in a situation like that, you know, how much better and cleaner would that invade have been if Mowgli was on time, on position, as the wave was crashing into Upset and IgNar, you know, making them choose between losing all of that CS and protecting the blue buff for Trick. But it's these little desyncs, which is why Vitality have been so inconsistent in the regular split.
I think inconsistent is just the watchword for Vitality forever. You know, we look back to Spring Split where they, you know, struggled a huge amount and then were able to come back. And then even last year, they had to bring Kickers in the middle way of the split to make it to Worlds. Schalke looking for a play down towards the bottom side.
And this is how you're supposed to do it. You shove the wave in. Jactroll is trying desperately to clear it out, but here's the dive.
See IgNar going in, doesn't have the 6, tanks up the tower, 1 down, but Vitality will lose 1 in return. Trick almost falls. Meanwhile, Mowgli and Cabochard looking for the dive in the top lane. Death's Grasp going to pull him back, but Odo couldn't put down the Realm of Death in time. And Vitality take a kill on the top side. They're getting a lot out of the fact that Schalke invested so many resources into that dive bot.
Yeah, and it's because Mowgli's able to make a successful gank onto the top side, while Jiizuké is also picking up a plate in the mid lane. So cross-map, Vitality do manage to get something back, but it just kind of felt like anything you can do, I can do better from Schalke. Vitality didn't time their wave. It didn't allow them to get the blue buff. Schalke then forced the wave in, and right on time, they got 2 members to look for the dive.
But although Schalke were able to do that, they are still 2,000 gold behind in this situation.
And the big thing was that Jactroll actually did a good job trying to clear out that wave. So Schalke were forced to walk up to the tower when they didn't have perfect preparation. And again, the fact that Mowgli cross-map is able to make this happen.
Yeah, I think Odoamne holding on to his ultimate there, trying to catch it onto Cabochard instead of Mowgli, because it's very difficult to fight an Olaf 1v1. I do have a pause coming out. Quickly take state of the game. 10 minutes in, 3 kills to 3, but a 2,000 gold lead for Vitality. And where does that sit? You've got about a 900 gold lead, 800 gold lead on Attila. About 1,200 in the top lane for Cabochard. So sizable sums for the Karma and the Xayah.
And it's mostly through the massive CS difference. Odo lost a big wave when he got dove underneath that tower. Doesn't have access to his TP, so it's 90 to 58 between the top laners and the CS. And it's also about a 20 CS discrepancy between Attila and Upset. And that's where a lot of this gold advantage comes from Vitality. But on the other side, you have Abba, who's sitting with 2 and 0 on the Sylas. And Akali already took kind of the respect Sylas spec in terms of her keystone, you know, taking the fleet footwork and trying to get more of that health back in the lane, sustained through it. So I'm curious if this is going to transition into Schalke now recognizing we can gain priority in the mid lane through a powerful Sylas and start to use this priority to shifting towards side lanes.
Well, let's see if they do use that Sylas. There was a mouse issue for Upset, but I believe we're about to get back on into the game. I see the ready checks happening in chat, so in just a second we should be jumping back in. I shouldn't actually say in just a second until I know that we're definitely jumping back in, but thankfully we are jumping back in. So I'm Nostradamus once again, the prophet, prediction god, superior analyst, whatever you want to call me, Frosk, as we jump back on into the action.
I'm going to call you superior analyst.
And I'm going to call you 12.
Thank you.
No worries. So, next steps. You talked about.
Where would you like to go, superior analyst?
I want to talk a little bit about next steps, right? Because you said Schalke should be looking to play through Abbedagge in the mid lane, who has these 2 kills.
They
could be looking. Sorry, yes, I should quote you correctly. They could be looking to play through Abbedagge. But what will Vitality be looking to do, or what could they be looking to do in these next, say, 5 to 10 minutes?
I think Vitality really want to try to punish either these side lanes on the map or even punish Abba if Schalke try to play through him. But that said, I do want to point out also IgNar having the Mowgli boots. Now, Mowgli boots isn't, you know, out of the ordinary for support. A lot of supports will pick up these Mowgli boots, especially when you're on something like an Alistar. The reason why it really matters for IgNar is around this time of the map, IgNar actually makes a lot of roams and teams up with Trick or teams up with Abba. And now that he has that, he can be there that much faster. So keep our eyes on where IgNar shows up.
Oh, Jiizuké's gone all the way in, but Trick is on the chase, and here comes Abbedagge as well. Has stolen the way the ultimate. Mowgli jumping in, and here's the TP. Schalke collapse around the mid lane. You predicted it, Frost, and Schalke are looking for the fight. Odo's gonna fall though. Death's Grass just spells his doom. Jactroll goes down as well. 2-for-1 trade in the mid lane.
And Vitality tried to strike first. They were caught off guard, turned around from Schalke. You now have the rotation. Now, meanwhile, Cabochard is continuing to grow the CS lead. You can see that Odo is still dead for a long time. Multiple plates for Cabochard. It's a pretty massive swing for the Karma, but you need to use the Karma now.
Schalke going to use the Rift Herald down towards that bottom lane. As you say, Karma is one of those champions that can have a huge impact in fights and in skirmishes, but doesn't always have that obvious impact as such. You know, she's not the one assassinating the backline, she's the one facilitating your team and putting out some damage with those Mantrid inspired. Now, I'm not sold on this Rift Herald use when the minion wave was so far away, but
I actually think it's really cool. So obviously very clear, Upset's there saying we've just killed Vitality in the mid lane. We actually have a tempo advantage where we're to the bottom lane before Vitality are responding, so we can cheat a plate gank with this Rift Herald and then walk back to the wave, clear it out very quickly, and it's a big wave, and get a free back in without having to burn TP. We'll see if he does use it, but he could actually cheat not having to use his TP.
Have another look at this fight in the mid lane. You can see Jiizuké is already going in by the time the cast comes out. Abbedagge forced underneath the tower, and then Mowgli just overextends a little bit, not anticipating the damage coming out from the Sylas.
Yeah, and then it's the TP that comes in for Odo, and he quickly falls to his death, but when Jactroll turns around to make sure that he goes down, Jactroll himself is then killed.
Odo is the target here. Vitality playing around their side lanes. You said they wanted to put some pressure into Cabochard, but the rest of Schalke are on their way. TP coming in, and it's Upset to join the fray. Cabochard knocked into the wall. Mowgli chased down by Abbedagge. Cabo's going to try and flash away, but Upset is there with the killer instinct, chasing him down, and Cabo continues to heal, but Upset takes him out. 2 for Schalke.
And reminder, Upset didn't have to use his TP to respond to pressure bot lane because of how they used the Herald and not trying to force the wave. It was a really good efficiency of time, and it allowed him to use his TP there to pick up that kill.
And it means that Schalke have been able to close down that gold gap just a little bit, about 1,000 gold behind after being 2,000 a moment ago. Schalke playing 4D chess with Vitality right now, but Vitality sometimes perhaps just overextending a little bit for these fights.
I think while Schalke are picking up a lot of these kills, Vitality are still getting multiple plates. So if Jactroll and Attila can get themselves to safety here, it could be worth.
This is the thing, they can't always get themselves to safety. Sometimes they go a little bit too far. IgNar trying to catch out Jactroll, knocked up, knocked back, Unbreakable Wing comes out. Attila will pop the Feather Storm, but Jactroll will be sacrificed. He goes down. Abbedagge now 5-0. On that Sylas.
And meanwhile, Jiizuké pushed down the top tower. So again, I think cross map from Vitality, that's actually been a win for them in the last 4 minutes of play.
We'll see if they can keep up the tempo. It becomes harder and harder to push when you get past that first tier of towers. 14 minutes in, they have about 1,500 gold lead or thereabouts. They are behind on the kill board, but they are very, very rich. Hextech Gunblade finished on Jiizuké, Essence Reaver on Attila. The Luden's in the top lane for Cabochard, but I do have to keep looking back towards Abbedagge. 5 kills now on the Sylas. He could totally change some of these fights.
But that means if Schalke actually play around Abba right now. Usually when we think about Schalke, we do think of them as Upset's team. He is in between items, and so I'm now just curious, who's going to have a louder voice in this team? The veteran of Upset or the rookie of Abba? And is Abba going to be the one that says, hey guys, I'm 5-0, we can actually just kick me out to a side lane, play a 1-4, and constantly collapse down to me, abuse my power? Or are we going to stall out, get Upset to 2 items on this Kai'Sa, and look for big 5v5s? Because normally, it is about Upset.
Yeah, Upset's just looking for every fight he can find. Almost takes out Jactroll as he jumps in with the killer instinct.
But look at this. Abba actually cheated in towards the mid lane. And something I want viewers to keep track of with Schalke is they don't usually play side lanes. Like, they can, but they'll almost always pull Abba when he's on things like a Sylas, like an Akali, to a team fight. Team fighting is very important to Schalke, whereas other teams like G2 will almost always play their Akali and their Sylases off in side lanes.
Let's see if he keeps roaming down to try and help out the team. I think I would be more worried if this was the Schalke from Spring, where we saw Abba usually on those utility mid laners like the Lissandra. He was very much there as just someone who would facilitate upset. This split, we've seen him thrive on things like the Azir, like the Akali, have an impact by himself and not just be there as another support for his AD carry. Jiizuké trades into him. Trick here, Jiizuké trying to dodge around, goes in. The perfect execution isn't quite enough, but he dodges away from the supreme display of talent. And Jiizuké in the 2v1 comes up huge.
Yeah, and think of how many resources Vitality have, Schalke have committed to Jiizuké up there, while Cabochard gets the bot tower again. It's Vitality who are actually making the proper trades on the map. They're the ones picking up all of the towers.
Vitality seems to be reading Schalke just so much better this game. After game one was disastrous from level 1, this matchup seems to be a lot closer than perhaps some people would have expected from the result. Vitality playing up towards this bottom side of the map. Mowgli and Cabochard just trying to catch out Odoamne if he oversteps, but Attila and Jactroll so strong with a 30 CS lead over Upset are pushing in towards mid. Now Trick doesn't have his ult, but he's waiting in the wings. IgNar gonna get onto Jactroll, who jumps in as well. They're trying to take out Upset, and already he's down. 1-for-1 trade as IgNar's caught down towards the bottom side of the fight. Abbedagge coming in, Mowgli low, but Odo's there to catch the kill. And Jiizuké's chased down here by Abbedagge. Jiizuké trying to trade. Cabochard and Attila on their way to help out today. And now Abbedagge can't get back into the fight. There's a 3v2 in favor of Vitality. They're trying to get one more, but Abbedagge will flash the wall.
And Vitality just get a little bit too greedy. So the idea is sound. We actually really want to take control over that mid lane tower, and normally how you do this is let's see if I can make this larger. Nailed it. Normally what you do and what Vitality were doing is that when you want to take that tower, you hard push these waves forward, and then you cheat in, threatening a dive. Now what Vitality needed to do is they needed to threaten that they were going to dive the mid tower, force Schalke to back off of it, and just be there for the structure. But this is classic Vitality. They get caught out, they overextend for the dive, and now instead of securing the mid lane tower, they're back wasted time, and they have to set up this play again, and hopefully it works for them.
Well, it kind of worked out. In Vitality's eyes, they said, okay, we got 3 kills, we only gave up 2 kills, so that's definitely a benefit, but I agree with you, taking the mid lane tower should have been their primary goal. We'll have another look at exactly how it happens. You'll see up here, Jiizuké is coming in from the top side, and Mowgli and Cabochard are coming in from the bot side.
And again, Schalke will not be denied here. They immediately go in. I do want to credit Jactroll that he's actually able to trade 1-for-1 there, knowing that he was going to die, and then it just becomes a very split fight.
You can see Abbedagge trying to chase onto Jiizuké, but he's saved by Cabochard and Attila. The shield coming out from Cabochard. Abbedagge having to flash in the end. I didn't actually see that the fact that Attila used his Feather Storm, but that means that ultimate was off cooldown for just a little bit of time. It's coming back up pretty soon. And we'll see once again if Vitality go for that exact same play, because it seems to be what they're looking for.
And reminder, you know, if Vitality are able to push down this tower, it feels better for them because their champions are ready right now. Yeah, some of their champions will continue to get stronger, but Karma having 2 items and this early in the game is still hitting relatively hard. Akali has assassination potential. Attila's looking at 2 items versus, you know, again, Kai'Sa still being in between items.
Oh. IgNar trying to channel the Hex Slash there, but the chase is on. Death's Grasp misses. Abbedagge jumping in the fight begins. Jiizuké not here. Trick's already got down Jactroll, and the Feather Storm comes out. Mowgli still being chased down. Trick going in, Attila low. He's shut down, and now Jiizuké's in a 1v5 situation. He's trying to take out Trick. He'll get one, and Jiizuké's still doing it all. Cabochard surviving for such a long time, but Jiizuké will go down in the end, and Schalke find the picks they wanted.
And the difference maker was the numbers advantage there. It was the fact that Jiizuké was locked out of the fight to the very end. Imagine if that team fight was set up better for Vitality. We just talked about how strong they are in their current itemization. Now you just need to make sure that you're there for the first punch.
Oh, Mowgli. You're not the king of the swingers today, my man. He's not king of the jungle. Baloo was waiting around the corner. That's a lot of Mowgli references, perhaps too many to put in for a second there. Now, Infernal Drake will be the next target, but you can see this. Vitality think, okay, it's fine. We can catch him out. IgNar's going to fall.
But you're also starting off a fight on an Alistar that you don't get to immediately kill, and then Vitality overcommit to the fight, too many members. Jiizuké finally gets into the fight when it's only a 3 versus 5 left. Now, to be said, he is still Akali, does pick up a lot of gold. That's going to feel good, especially if they use him in the side lane. But you lose the Infernal.
You lose the Infernal, you give over 3 kills to Odoamne now as well. He's got a Rylai's building up towards a Liandry's next, it seems. And those sort of mistakes are why we call Vitality inconsistent. Until this point, we talked about side lane pressure. We talked about how they were playing on the opposite side of the map so well. But they take trades like that, they take plays like that, and it costs them dearly.
It's kind of the difference of teamwork. I feel like Vitality are really strong individual players, but they very rarely work as a single unit. Now, when they do, it's very clear when Vitality pop off and then they can reach the heights that we know of them in 2018 going to Worlds, those crazy highlight days. But recently, they haven't had the same teamwork, whereas on the other side, Schalke are like the teamwork team. It's constantly IgNar teaming up with Trick. It's Abba teaming up with Trick. It's setting that line of scrimmage and having this big tanky front line for a guy like Upset to just push through people. We're still trying to take this mid tower.
Yeah, if only they'd done it earlier when you called it. Attila going in for those final order attacks. We'll take it. IgNar looking for a bit of a flank position, but can't quite find it. As a reminder to everyone at home, the loser of this series is out of Worlds contention this year. Last year, it was Vitality who stole Schalke's spot on championship points after Schalke made the finals in summer. This year, Schalke are looking to repay the favor.
Now, I do want to point out the Baron as it has spawned now. We're about 22 minutes into the game, and I want to talk about Schalke's composition. I'm still unclear about how powerful Mordekaiser is in the late game, but something that can be said for Mordekaiser is that he screws over Baron challenges because he just looks at the enemy jungler, he takes them down to the Shadow Realm, and then you basically get it for free. Schalke's comp also then has Kai'Sa on top of that and an Alistar. All of these champions who really excel in securing that monster objective, Kai'Sa through her burn on it, and Alistar through his ability to zone everyone away from the pit.
And now Schalke are starting to get some of those turrets on the board. 2 for them, go pretty much even as we get towards the 22-minute mark. And talking about the Mordekaiser and his strength, getting those 4 kills obviously helps him, but you have to put your eyes a couple down the screen. That's 606 Sylas, who now has Ludens and Proto belt complete.
I mean, I want to compliment Abba. He is very large, but you saw the last time he went toe-to-toe with Jiizuké, and it looked really scary.
I mean, that's true. That is true. But he now has a 10-stack Medjay Frosk.
I understand. I thought that Abba was going to have it the first time around. It was a 2v1. Jiizuké still proved me wrong. I'm going to say it's a skill matchup.
Okay, it's a skill matchup. And Jiizuké earlier on was looking much more like the Jiizuké from Worlds than he has done this split. IgNar going in, lands 1 knockup as Attila pops the Feather Storm. IgNar knocked back down towards the other side. Mowgli caught out here by Abbedagge, and he can definitely win that matchup. The jungler is dead, and now Schalke can look to try and push in this mid wave as that turret still remains for them to take.
It's kind of the option. Do you push into the mid lane wave, or do you just try to rotate towards Baron, bait Vitality to stop you because your jungler is dead, and you would force them to take the fight?
That's what they're going to do. They go up towards the Baron right now. Odoamne is actually down towards the bottom side as is Trick. So
I was going to say.
The bait's definitely not. I got baited for a second, but obviously I wasn't watching my mini-map. Jactroll, though, he went in to try and get some vision, and Trick is here, and now Attila's going to go down as well. You don't even need to bait them towards the Baron when they just feed themselves into you. Now Schalke will turn towards Nasha, and it's on Jiizuké and Cabochard to try and defend.
Now Mowgli is back up. You can see him on the bottom of your screen in the base. He's running, sprinting his way towards that pit. Upset doesn't have TP, and that tells me that Schalke are going to say, okay, just take the gold that we just got off these team fights. We can repeat this maneuver, get priority over mid lane, pick up some picks, and then transition to a much safer Baron.
And how quickly that gold has swung. You look at it at, say, 18 minutes, Vitality 3,000 gold ahead. At 20 even, and now 2,000 gold lead for Schalke. And a lot of that is going into Upset, into Odoamne. They're getting towards these 3 items. Kai'Sa, only more powerful as the game goes on. Look at it, Ginsu's complete. Muramana stacked up with a Hex Drinker there to save him from Jiizuké, who has played very well so far, but will it be enough to get Vitality even in this series?
Well, currently, Schalke got positioning on the bot wave. They pushed it into Cabochard, so they actually have numbers advantage to the top side, but it looks like we're going to press pause on that, repeat this motion, as they wanted to take their backs.
So is this the same sort of concept as we saw when Vitality were going for the mid lane tower? Will Schalke go, press the side lanes, then come into the jungle and try and look for that flank or to try and push Vitality off? Or do they need to approach this fight a little bit differently?
I think it's mostly about roam potential right now, and it's about small windows of time. So you're looking at the ping pong match between Cabochard and Odo as they push this wave bottom back and forth, and then who gets the freed up time to rotate towards the fight in mid lane.
Oh, Mowgli's caught out again, pops the flash away. Odo trying to fight down towards the bottom side as Attila goes in. Jactroll caught out in the realm of death. Abbedagge almost takes down Mowgli, and now Jactroll is not in the best of shapes. Lands the body slam back, but he will fall to Odo. The root comes out from Attila as Jiizuké going forward, trying to carry this fight for his team, but look at how low he is. Shut down once, he gets shut down in response, and now Attila chasing away from Abbedagge, but he's caught out and upset, feels the killer instinct, flashes forward, takes the double, and Schalke come out on top in the fight.
And Vitality weren't able to shut down the damage dealers from Schalke, and the fact that there are multiple threats. Abbedagge tore through that, and then Upset cleaned up the back half. They now rotate over towards the Baron. Trick is still alive, Mowgli is not, and it's just Cabochard to see what he can get done.
So Cabo does have a lot of AoE damage here, and Mantrid Inner Flame could do a lot. We've seen it stolen away before by a Karma. It was reckless. He goes in, Upset going forward though, and Trick will take the Baron. Schalke acted as a body block, and it means that at 25 minutes in this game, they are 4,000 gold ahead, and they have that Baron buff for 3.5 minutes.
Really want to compliment the teamwork there. As soon as the Hex Flash went down from IgNar, Upset immediately pulled off the Baron and then acted as the zoning tool there. So great synergy between Schalke to secure that 100% as we look at this team fight. Very split team fight. Abba immediately zones out Mowgli, and again, Jiizuké late to the team fight as Abba then kind of zones the back half of Vitality. Jiizuké gets damage while he can onto the back line, but there's just too many members and too much lockdown.
I think IgNar does a really good job of separating Vitality from Jiizuké as well. He acts as that bodyguard, the blocker for them, and it means Jiizuké is in a 1v4 situation on the backline.
Part of why I really like Schalke's team fighting is their zone control. Again, a lot of people will always talk about Upset, but if you look about IgNar, Abba, Trick, Odo, each of them takes their own turn and responsibility of creating zone for the backline and knowing exactly what they need to do for every single team fight. It allows them to play multiple compositions and multiple different styles. As long as it's a front-to-back team fight, they're very good at it.
So powerful when they each know the exact role they have to do. You can see it, as you say, they take turns being the one on the front line. They take turns being the disengage tool for Upset. And because Upset is now at such a strong position with 3 completed items, because you have an 18-stack Medjay on Abbedagge, even if you lose 1 man, you can still follow up with a lot more damage. Schalke opening up the map even more. They took down the mid lane tower. They take down 1 in bot alongside it, and now we'll see where they decide to go next. Looks like Abbedagge is going to be in a side lane, and the rest of Schalke will go mid.
And they're just going to wait for Abba to walk this minion wave into that top tower. The last standing outer top is kind of the easiest objective to secure. Obviously, the one that Schalke would really like to have is the mid inner structure.
I mean, that's definitely what you want to get, right? If you can break open that mid-tier 2 or even inhibitor tower, it would be incredibly impactful.
But you just make sure that you're funneling both the mid lane and the top wave together. So now you can see that Schalke have kind of synced up the waves in the mid lane and the top. You shove it in. Trick has now moved in between top and mid. He's laid down all of this vision, and they're going to constantly chip at these towers, see where Vitality misposition, either force a tower down, find a pick, or continue to chip damage away and rotate between these 2 waves.
So Upset was actually bot lane just here. He just based, has the teleport. He's going to join Abbedagge in the top lane as the rest of Schalke come across. Jiizuké trying to trade in, Upset running away, but oh, they catch him out. Look at the damage onto Abbedagge. He's quite low. Upset's going to take this tower with the help of those cannon minions, and Odoamne is now in the mid lane as that bot wave crashes in. It's actually Abbedagge teleporting down towards this bottom side as Schalke. It's unrelenting pressure. They continue to push in. Odo has a TP next if they want to look at using him for that next offensive.
But reminder, it's kind of the same macro movement that we talked about when you're securing a mid tower that Vitality were trying to do. It's the threat of the potential dive on mid. So Schalke are set up right now where they're continuing to funnel in the Baron wave, and the cannon creep is still hitting that mid lane tower.
And now Abbedagge and Odoamne are going to try and take down this inhibitor tower. Vitality realize they have to do something. They go for the fight. Abbedagge caught out. Odoamne off towards the top side of this as Abbedagge tries to trade onto Cabochard. Goes golden for the moment, but Odo can't really do too much to help out his mid laner. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, the mid-tier 2 falls, and now the inhibitor tower is the new target for Schalke. All they wanted to do was open up the map. They will sacrifice Abbedagge for that, and they take down the inhib tower mid.
And for everything that looked good to Vitality in the early game, Schalke have just undone them in the mid game, transitioning over into the late game. They now have a very healthy gold lead. They have all of the core itemization onto all of the core carries that they need. And again, this was Schalke wrestling control back from Vitality and then just choking them out slowly over the course of this game.
And you do begin to wonder if Vitality end up losing this game on its current trajectory. It looks a lot like it's going to happen. Do they then go back to the playbook for Game 3, or do they say, we'll bring out a Karthus Smite, we'll bring out a Graves once again, do something a little bit inventive because that's what's worked for them in the past? Or do they go for something more traditional and try and just play a little bit cleaner?
I'm not kind of sure where they want to attack. Just looking at this replay here, you can see Jiizuké level 15 to Abba's level 17. Abba's able to absorb so many resources from Vitality alongside Odo here, while his mid lane, or while Vitality's mid lane tower gets shoved down. So it's kind of like fighting an uphill battle for Vitality at this point in the game. All of those early advantages that they found on the Akali don't mean anything at this point.
Unable to utilize them in the mid game when they were strongest, and now scaling on Schalke's side. I mean, they have a 6,000 gold lead as well, which definitely helps. Qiyana down towards the bottom side. It's Abbedagge up towards top, and Schalke are going to just play for that 3-lane push once again. This is where that fundamental League of Legends comes into great effect. It's where Schalke are so powerful, because they are able to line up these waves so effectively.
This is a flank being set up. Keep your eyes on Trick as he is zooming through this jungle. This is about to be the flashpoint.
Jiizuké matches him. They spotted him out. Trick is down. Schalke looking for the fight though. Abbedagge jumps into Attila, and already he's gone down. Jiizuké's used the perfect execution, and the rest of Schalke chased onto Vitality and took them out. Jiizuké caught out Trick.
He's got the wave
on the flank, and now he's got the wave. Looking to catch Schalke off guard. The upset can just open up on the inhibitor because, of course, that tower's already gone down. Schalke will settle for this. There's a big wave in bot and a big wave in top. If Jiizuké can't get back in time, they could open up all 3 inhibs.
Jiizuké is trying to do everything he can to keep Vitality alive in this series, but there are too many waves crashing. Yes, he gets the mid lane wave, but the bot lane wave is crashing. The top lane wave is crashing, and Schalke are still going to decimate Vitality's base.
For a moment, there were signs of life as Jiizuké caught out Trick, but Schalke just slammed that door straight in their face. All 3 inhibitors are down. 2 seconds left on the Baron. And you have to feel Schalke don't even need it to close out this game.
Yeah, and here's the textbook League of Legends. The fact that they'll grab it anyway, again, continue to force all 3 waves into Vitality's base and close the door. Now, Vitality then know it is do or die time. This is the climax of the game. They have one more shot. They are going to have to risk everything to stall this Baron, because if Schalke get it, it's over.
You know what doesn't help? If Jactroll's already dead. Upset is dominating, went in with the killer instinct, and Jactroll unable to disengage in time. The rest of Schalke on their way. Odo does have a teleport if Vitality go too far. And look at this, IgNar has a perfect flank position, but Vitality have noticed. IgNar tries to Hex Flash away, but he can only catch out Mowgli. IgNar goes golden, Trick jumping in, Supreme Display of Talent will knock them back and get the stuns off. IgNar heals up, and now Schalke can continue the offensive. Jiizuké trying to do what he can, he jumps in, he needs to take out Upset. If Vitality are going to do anything in this fight. Trick down, 2 down, Vitality fighting back, it's 3! Vitality find it, all off the back of Jiizuké. Attila still putting the damage out. Oh, just give it to them. Just take it all. Abbedagge tries to trade in. Jiizuké caught out. Oh, Abbedagge. Is he going to be able to do it? Jiizuké trying to take this one. Oh, it's Abbedagge. Vitality fought to the last man, but it was Abbedagge and Schalke who stood up stronger.
And it was between the 2 mid laners. Who was going to come out on top? Jiizuké was so far down, a massive gold lead. It is just now Jactroll trying to keep Vitality alive in this, trying to keep Schalke away from match point.
Mowgli up now as well, trying to help his support play this game out, but Abbedagge's already taken down one. The Nexus Tower's going to fall, and Mowgli decides to the minions. Schalke wrestled this game out of Vitality's hands, and they are 1 game away from winning the series.
And you can see it. There's a small glimmer of hope there for Jiizuké multiple times in that game, trying to make those crazy outplays, trying to draw attention and pressure. Vitality, they were bouncing around the map, they were picking up the early towers, it felt like they were making the better rotations, but Schalke slowed down the game, particularly that mid tower not going down. Vitality overcommit on that, suddenly Schalke have tempo. They're able to get Upset to his item spikes. Once he's there, they feel confident for the team fight. Time after time, Vitality getting picked out elsewhere on the map, and then Schalke just turn it around.
It was so close for Vitality. You feel if they take that mid tower, if they can keep the tempo of the game, the pace of the game up, they could have taken that game from Schalke, but Schalke, it seems like they go off book. They haven't planned for a situation, but as soon as they get back into the book, as soon as they can recognize a situation and make a play they have made so many times before, it's almost impossible to shut them down.
Just too clean.
Just too clean. And what a change for Schalke as well. You only have to remember Spring Split, where this team absolutely fell apart in the second half, going 2-7, not even making it to playoffs. And now with the introduction of Trick, they seem revitalized. They seem like a new team. And you look at people like Upset, who are stepping up. You look at people like Abbedagge, who had a stellar performance as well. Schalke looking strong. Vitality still have a shot in this playoffs round 1 series, but it is a very, very long shot now. They have to reverse sweep if they're going to make it back.
And now I have to ask the mental question here. The fact that Vitality, we know them as a momentum-based team. Schalke have a reputation of being a little bit of tilters, but 2 games up, they're probably riding high, whereas Vitality, can they find that clutch? Can they dig deep to avert complete disaster here as they're looking at a 3-0?
I feel there were moments where if they hadn't played as well as they did at times in that game, it would be easier for them to come back. Like game 1, where you lose at level 1, it's like, well, that's why the game lost. But here, they fought their hardest and they were pushed back by Schalke. For now, we're going to hand it over to our analysts who are going to break down game 2. Take it away, Sjokz.
Thank you very much, Medic. Well, I have to concur. At least more was put on the table by Vitality. They weren't just blown away like they were in game 1, but they had some more chances. And even with those, it wasn't enough. So let's dive into this game 2 that now brings Schalke 04 on match point, which is shocking to start with. I think even though people had Schalke pegged as the winners, we didn't think it would be a 3-0 or such a confidence 3-0, except for Ender.
Well, some of us did, Sjokz.
So what did you think of Vitality's plan going into game 2 after what they shown in game 1?
I mean, it was a whole lot better, right? No more of that double jungle. This was much more what we expected to see out of Vitality, where they were playing a little bit more proactively and trying to actually fight. You know, Jactroll in particular on the support Gragas was really trying to force the issue. And for a lot of that game, it actually worked out for this team. Vitality had the lead for most of it.
I think a big part of this draft was that it relies extremely heavily on the Olaf, how the Olaf plays early game, and then from there, like them getting sideline pressure and therefore finding flanks. Because the only way for them to force a fight otherwise is Gragas. So it's important that Olaf gets ahead, and then they're able to win these 2v2s and 3v3s later in the game on side lane so that they can collapse for fights.
And we saw a lot of the early jungle pathing was to put Mowgli ahead on this Olaf, right? They go for the late invade on the enemy red buff, not at level 1, giving up triple kills this time, but it worked out. And he was supposed to have an EXP lead off of that. But I think Mowgli dropped the ball a little bit in that instead of trying to contest Trick around his bot side jungle or around that scuttle crab or anything like that, he went back and did a full clear. And in that time, Trick was able to find a gank in the bottom lane that helped set up that bottom lane for success. So it was a lot of these moves where I felt like Mowgli could have pushed the issue a little bit more, but didn't. And that meant the Vitality couldn't get as big of a lead as I think they should have off that level 1.
Well, if we also look at the comparison of Mowgli versus Trick in the early game in these 2 games, it was kind of what we expected, you know? We expected Trick to be a bit better in those early phases of the game, setting up his lanes as well, and that's played out as such. So do we think it's Mowgli who really needs to step up to just push it that much further for Vitality to get an advantage in the next games?
Like in this game, it definitely felt like it was on Mowgli. He had prio on 2 and sometimes 3 of his lanes, and the onus was on Trick to like find these plays, right? So you can tell that there's like a lack of coordination between the jungle and the lanes as well for Vitality, because if he wants to go for that scuttle on bot, he should be able to with bot prio, or he does a full clear and his bot plays safe. It's one of the two. And it felt like they were trying to do both. Meanwhile, I can see Trick works so well with IgNar with bot lane, so many plays on bot side with IgNar, because they're on the same page, they're coordinated.
Right, so I think Vitality, they had a pretty clear idea of trying to attack the enemy blue buff, especially on the first respawn of that camp. And they all grouped up, tried to find it, they ended up backing away. And it was like, that was a pretty frustrating thing, I think, for that team, because when you have the Olaf, you have a prio bot lane, you want to force the issue in the enemy jungle. And then later on in the game, there was another blue buff where they tried to do the same thing and force onto IgNar, I believe, and then they get caught off guard. And it was this constant thing where I think that Vitality were playing too far forward without pressure. And that was a problem that we diagnosed with them earlier on in the season, where they go in for this fight thinking they're picking off one member, but they don't actually have Jiizuké there, a big carry force on the team, turns into a 4v5.
And it was a shame specifically in this game because, as you said, they were doing well in this game. They were ahead even at one point. But then it comes to that mid game, and I think this is also where where we always praise Schalke for taking the right team fights and playing them out correctly, but Vitality tend to overpush.
Yeah, so in this case, it was actually a really good start with Jactroll. Of course, he trades his life there, but is able to single out Upset in this fight. And this fight ends up going very well for Vitality. Again, they use their side lane pressure to get the collapse and dive on this mid lane tower. It's actually the inverse of the play I was showing before the game when we were doing that Telestrator breakdown. And this time it was Vitality forcing the issue. Then they stopped doing that and Schalke were able to turn it around.
Yeah, it's both examples, the two sides of one coin. And I think in this case it was correct, but unfortunately for all the examples that came after that in the game, it didn't work out as well. And I think Vitality then has an issue to pull back. When that happens once, other teams would say, okay, we will regroup, we will reset, and we'll make sure we don't do that again because that's going to cost us the advantage. But Vitality kind of keeps doing it, and that's also what we're going to see in the next replay. And from there, you see that it starts to get out of hand a bit for Vitality, and Schalke gets the advantage back.
This is the one that you were talking about, actually, where you can see that they're constantly off timings. Vitality, the foreman, is forcing over here on IgNar, and it honestly doesn't look like a bad engage, but Jiizuké is so late to it because he's not on the same page with what everyone else wants to do. He's looking to push mid, and he's looking to get control.
And this is exactly the type of area of the map where Vitality want to fight. A tight corridor where you have the Feather Storm, you have like the Mantra Q from Karma. It's a really good position to fight, so the idea is perfect. The timing of going for that fight before Jiizuké is in a position to try and follow up, that's where the problem is. And that ended up being a huge swing in this game to put Schalke in the driver's seat.
And I also want to just put the focus on both mid laners. Abbedagge in his first playoffs had a fantastic early game. He could have maybe done a bit more with the kills he was given, but Jiizuké actually had a good game, you know, and you can't be blaming him for the times when the team is not on the same page, I think, but he's having better games, so maybe that can be an avenue for Vitality to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Jiizuké had a great game over here. In fact, I think he, in a lot of ways, played better than Abbedagge despite the scoreline because he had pressure in laning phase, you know, given Olaf and everything still. He had pressure in laning phase, but outside of that, when he was in side lane, he was actually pressuring them in a matchup that should favor Sylas, with a fed Sylas. We had that 1v2 top where he almost killed Sylas. He kept pressuring. He was fast on pushing sideways. Like, Jiizuké made sure that he had pressure on the map. It was on everyone else to also try to match that.
Yeah, exactly. That didn't work out. And on the other side, we had an Upset who was playing out of his mind. I mean, game one was kind of okay. He got super fed on the Caitlyn. But here on the Kai'Sa, he picks up a lot of kills here, a triple kill in the mid lane as well. And it's just playing to his potential. I believe you said it yesterday, Moose. He's just playing fantastically for this team, and it shows once again.
This is the big turning point in the game where the gold lead actually swings in favor of Schalke. He's sitting over on top of a control ward, sees Jactroll comes in, lands the isolated Q for the damage, then Trick comes around on the flank. It's two fast kills for Schalke, and after that moment, they just kept going forward and kept finding these continued beautiful fights.
Yeah, Upset having a fantastic series so far, and now Schalke no fear find them on match point versus Vitality, or it'll be the reverse sweep by Vitality, but that's gonna take a lot, and they'll have to stop this man in the bottom lane. So Vitality, they chose red side in maybe the final game. Of course, last time when they had the choice, they chose blue side just in game 2. So what are we expecting? Are we expecting a kind of final huzzah, crazy draft once again? Or are we gonna see more of this and try to work out the kinks and try and make their normal composition work?
I think we look for more of this, but when we go to red side, as I alluded to earlier, it's more a Cabochard focus draft. It's about getting counter for him, putting him in a position to succeed, and having Mowgli focus the top side of the map.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope that they have a response to the game 1 draft that Schalke had, because Schalke also has to kind of try to figure out what Vitality's responses to those are. So I want to see Vitality come in with a solid plan to whatever the Schalke draft from game 1, and then actually have counter picks ready and play a standard game.
From the momentum side, Schalke, of course, I don't think they're going to give this away. For Vitality, it kind of is the perfect scenario, right? But we'll see what they can do with that. Vitality's title dreams are hanging out a bit of thread as they are one loss away from ending their 2019 season. Game 3 is up next. Don't miss it.
Towards mid. Now Trick doesn't have his ult, but he's waiting in the wings. IgNar gonna get onto Jactroll, who jumps in as well. They're trying to take out Upset, and already he's down. 1-for-1 trade as IgNar's caught down towards one side of the fight. Abbedagge coming in, Mowgli low, but Odo's there to catch the kill. But the chase is on. Death's Grasp misses. Abbedagge jumping in the fight begins. Jiizuké not here. Trick's already got down Jactroll, and the Feather Storm comes out. Mowgli's still being chased down. Trick going in, Attila low. He's shut down, and now Jiizuké's in a 1v5 situation. He's trying to take out Trick. He'll get one, and Jiizuké's still doing it all. Cabochard surviving for such a long time, but Jiizuké will go down in the end. That's Jiizuké going forward, trying to carry this fight for his team, but look how low he already is. Shut down once, he gets shut down in response, and now Attila chasing away from Abbedagge, but he's caught out and upset, feels the killer instinct, flashes forward, takes the double, and Schalke come out on top in the fight. Schalke wrestled this game out of Vitality's hands, and they are one game away from winning the series.
You don't have a chance against me. I can calculate 90 trillion moves in advance. Not fair. Not fair.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Ready for the finals?
Experience the LEC Finals in Athens with Shell V-Power.